when our recruiters are saying, tell me about a time that you had to communicate a situation to your boss, right, based on the information that was given to you, right? And my recruiters are going to want to hear about, well, what was the situation, right? What was the task, just like Nicolette said, what did they do? And what ended up happening? What was the result?
One of the things I do with my clients, I have them to answer some questions in written form, and then I revamp them, and then we practice them virtually so they can have a recording so they can go back home. And so one of the things I wanted him to do, well, I gave him a question. We all make mistakes we wish we could take back. Tell me about a time you wish you handled a situation differently, and what would you do if you can handle it differently today? Now, sometimes you'll get those 2-3 part questions, and you have to keep in your mind, listen carefully, and think through what they're asking. And I give a tip, like, this is a tricky question. I recommend thinking of a time where you were able to rectify a situation. Doing this, change it from the wish I could have, should have, would have answer to I did something to make it better. How you behaved is what they're looking for. So show you behaved in a way to make the situation better. So this is his answer. There was one time I was asked to do something very simple. I was asked by my manager to take an existing SharePoint structure and rearrange it to make it easier for the team to share the information. I was very reluctant and resistant to that task because there was a part of me that thought it was a waste of time, and I had more important things on my plate to complete. I ended up taking longer. Actually, this is my emotional intelligence person. I'm sorry. And she said, I ended up taking longer than needed to complete my task, which was disappointing to my manager. And this disappointment was reflected in her performance review. I wish I could have handled it differently by just completing a task, regardless of my thoughts behind the importance of it. If it was important enough for my manager to ask me to do it, then I should have just did it and not judge its importance. I would have handled this task differently today, regardless of how simple it was and unimportant. More complex does not always equate more important. So I changed it around. I said, okay, I learned not to only keep my personal thoughts out of an ask, and that a more complex assignment does not always equate to it being more important. So I came out the gate swinging with that, right? Then she said, here's the situation. There was a time I was asked to do something very simple. I was asked by my manager to take an existing SharePoint structure and rearrange it to make it easier for the team to find the information. I was reluctant and resistant to do the task because there was a part of me that thought it was a waste of time, and I had more important things on my plate to do. And because this was an action-oriented thing, so we didn't do any tasks, but what she did, I embarked upon completing the task, which ended up taking longer than needed to complete the task, which was disappointing to my manager. And truth be told, it disappointed me too. But this was due in part to my hesitancy and reluctancy to complete the task. Now, here's how she became the winner. I wish I would have handled the task differently today, regardless of how simple and important it seemed. I learned if it's important enough for my manager to ask to complete a task, I will complete it without hesitation, as it is not my place to judge its importance, and it's not fair to say a more complex task should equate to being more important. So I turned it around because she was really beating herself up. I said, yeah, you want to learn from the lesson, but you don't want to also show that, you know what, I'm not doing what my manager say. No, let's do it in a different manner. So how do you say what you want to say? Okay, so I wanted to just give an example of how you can think through your example to make it more impactful where you are still the winner. Okay, so now for the resumes. So so one of the things I want you to really think about, if you're still using a resume that says objective statement, then that's very 1970s, 1980s.
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Don't even look at it.
Yeah. It's like, if there's a resume that's out there to send an objective statement, it's not going to get picked up at all because we already know what the objective is. It's to get the job. So you don't have to state the obvious, but instead you want to write a professional summary that summarizes what they're looking for and how you have the skill set that will be supported in the body of the document for what they're looking for. So think about maybe 5 to 6, maybe even sometimes 7 short sentences to show the impact that you can make. And if you have numbers, it's even better that you show those numbers. Sometimes my salespeople, they have made millions of dollars. I come out the gate and talk about the fact that they made this impact and made this many $1 million for organizations. And if they've been a salesperson for a long time, I add it all up. So it's even bigger impact. So meaning that they showed it. And then you want, after you do that, you want to then put in your resume the competencies. So a lot of times the jobs are asking for specific competencies. So you want to have an area in your resume for keyword research or search for when they're finding you with those keywords and making sure that you can support it. Don't just put it in there, but you can't prove it, because we don't want you to get the job and they walk you out the door because you didn't prove it. But you want to make sure that you're including the keywords in there that you actually can do. So your competencies shows that you're competent, or even your skills. You want to show those things up the top, because if you think about a resume, the first, let me see, I'm just going to show you a piece of paper. So there are most times they want to read this and then they're going to go to the next one. They're not going to necessarily go down here first. So if you capture them with that top part of the actual resume, then you're going to be able to get them to be in a call pile so they can pass that on to the hiring manager to read the rest of the resume. You want to make it through that 3 to 6 second view. So when you do have it set up that way first, then you want to start talking about your experience that aligns with what they're asking for. So you want to put in some bullets to showcase that you got those skills. So you want to kind of bullet it under the actual job. And if you're writing these big paragraphs and just taking the job description and put it as bullets, that's not necessarily what they're looking for. Because how many of you all know that jobs change over the years? So just because you were hired for that job, you're probably not doing those same tasks anymore. So I want to hear about what you're doing now and also the results. So the numbers are better. Quantitative bullets are much better. But if you have qualitative bullets, and when I say qualitative, it means that if you're a support person, you still help your leader to get the results. So you could talk about how you're helping them. So that's qualitative results. So you want to talk about what is the result for my labor. And then when it goes all the way through your actual experience, if you have any kind of certifications that are in alignment with your expertise and with the job, you want to showcase those. Sometimes people forget about that. And if you are a person that does a lot of volunteer, you may not be in leadership in your current role, but if you're a leader in your volunteerism, you can showcase that. Yes, ma'am.